Welcome to this week's episode of Listen to Your Coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. This episode is going to be all about Coach Will. We're going to kind of break into his Stout origin story and touch on some of the earlier stuff as well. All right, you ready for this?
I think so.
Okay, because we're going to invade your privacy right now.
Let's go.
So let's just, start with something easy. We don't need to go too in depth on this. Just give me a brief overview of what piqued your interest in martial arts.
Good question. So my boy Martin, shout out Martin, he introduced me to like Bruce Lee movies when I was, I don't know, 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that time frame. And, I always thought like martial arts movies were cool, and I always thought that like action movies were cool and stuff, but like Bruce Lee, well, that's awesome. It was around that time that I also had started doing like traditional martial arts. My parents signed me up for it. So, yeah, it all just kind of meshed together. And then that further turned into fighting because I had like one coach in particular who like understood that traditional martial arts like don't really work.
Yeah, but he was a traditional martial art coach.
Yeah.
He was like about the realness of it.
Exactly. And he was like, dude, you got to watch the UFC.
Oh, for real? So that was your introduction to MMA?
And he's also the one who got me into lifting weights.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Let's rewind. So I wasn't prepared for this.
Okay.
I got like kind of like stuff that I want to ask you.
Yeah.
I knew stuff would just pop up. So that was your introduction to MMA as well?
Yeah.
Okay. How old do you think you were? I know you were notoriously bad.
14.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, you remembered it pretty clearly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, you're notoriously
To give you,
horrible.
I'm really bad at this, but to give you an idea of the time frame, I remember being like him explaining it to me and being like, "Oh, this is so sick! Like I should learn this." That's the reason I started wrestling too, and then went to I grew up with cable, right?
Yeah.
I was watching Arthur and stuff, right? Playing
Right,
outside.
yeah. Dude, I had cable and I still watch it.
Dude, it's a good program. But anyways, I went to my uncle's house up in New England, and he had all the cable, and I'd be like so fired up. And I remember watching some early, I don't know if it was Spike TV or whatever, but something about the UFC, and one of like the first like really complete fighters was Ivan Salivary.
Oh, wow.
So like this is old school, you know.
It's very old school. Yeah, and like, well, to like kind of like help put that timeline together, you are currently 33 years old, right? 33, so that's 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Which I think is kind of wild because you're such a young coach. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, it doesn't feel to me like you're a young coach because I've known of you to be a coach since 2013. So I've known of you as a coach for 11 years.
Yeah.
Right? So you would assume that like, your introduction to the sport wouldn't have happened just a mere 8 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, dude.
The first time you ever like, what is this?
Right. Like,
Yeah.
didn't really know it existed,
Yeah.
before that.
Right, yeah. So I'm trying to just like quickly in my head put that together. So you were 14. So that's 2000. I was 18. So that's 2004, 5. Yeah, because you're a late year birthday like me. So yeah, so it's 2005.
Right.
Is like roughly your introduction, right? So like, what was going on in MMA in 2005?
Ivan Salivary. Chuck Tito. That was big.
Was that Ultimate Fighter 1 in 2005?
I don't
Or was
know.
that slightly before?
That I'm not sure. I didn't get
I'm
into the
gonna
Ultimate
say
Fighter
it's
until
slightly
later.
before 2005 because I remember very deeply watching the BJ Penn Jones Pulver season, which was season 5. The season 18 was one, and that was definitely like I came home from school.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, okay, cool. Well, that's really interesting. I'm just trying to put it like if I could put a year, 2005. I'm trying to think when I first. Because I was like, oh, maybe we were like introduced at like close to the same time.
Well, that's also when like the UFC was getting popular because like Chuck was the first crossover star, So like that's when like it became not necessarily accessible, but like more regular people or people like me who were like just barely on the outside, like interested in martial arts, interested in fighting.
Would you say that you started watching mixed martial arts at that time? Like, did you start like seeking it out to watch?
I would seek it out, but I didn't really have access. So again, like no cable. My parents certainly aren't going to buy.
Would you go to like Family Video and grab like a VHS from UFC 3 or like?
The big thing for me was the internet. So I would find like fights afterwards. You know what I mean? and like scrolling through the like message boards to find out what happened, and like every once in a while someone would be like, I trained at this gym with this guy, and like you get in little inside stories and like that
That's
sort of
super
stuff.
interesting.
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't expect this to happen. So we're gonna stay on this just a little longer,
Yeah.
like because like you had the internet, which is like,
Yeah.
because like I'm trying to put myself at 14-year-old and like dude like.
Yeah.
And like I didn't know, dude. We just know that like I learned how to use YouTube like 2 months ago.
Yeah, dude.
Like, dude, I wasn't finding nothing on
Nah,
that, brother. You know
nah.
what I mean? I had my introduction to the UFC in seventh grade, which would have been in the late '90s.
Wow.
So
Wow, that's super early.
yeah, so my wrestling coach, who was also my uncle's wrestling coaches when they were in high school, and I ended up coaching with him as I was a coach, Coach Laddick. He before like Christmas, like the like last couple days before like Christmas, like you're not really doing work in school,
Right,
like,
yeah.
doing Christmas parties or something.
Yeah.
You're just getting the Christmas break. He was so I had him for gym, swimming, health, right? And our health portion was in the middle of the year, so we're in classroom, and he put the UFC on for us.
Dude, that's so sick.
Dude, it was so sick. But like I didn't, I wouldn't classify that as when I started watching it. Like I didn't
Right.
start watching him. I first saw it.
Well, it's also hard to like access. Like you had to like get pay-per-views. That's like
Yeah.
really the only way.
So that's
And,
where
like-
I'm going with this. That's how I'm connecting to you. I think we started watching it. At the
Oh,
same time.
yeah.
Because like like I saw it in class, and then I had him in 8th grade, so I saw it again, and then he was my coach. So like like every once in a while, like it would come up, but like it was like the same like UFC 1 or UFC
Right,
2.
right.
And then like around like the same time, like year as you. I'm older than you, but the same year as you, I started watching it.
Yeah.
Like seeking it out. And
Exactly.
Being able to like find it.
Right, yeah, yeah. That because that was the hard part. And like in those early years, what would suck is like you get on a message board and like someone would like give you the updates like hours after a fight happened, and you'd be like, that's so sick, and then I would have to wait like
Months.
yeah, until someone posted it online. So
Do you happen to recall like roughly around what number?
66.
66.
That's the first fight I was like, that's so exciting. I don't think I watched it live, but like I remember like reading about the build up. It was Chuck Tito. I forget which one. It might have been two. I don't know, it doesn't matter. But yeah, I remember being like, man, UFC 66, that's gonna be really cool.
Yeah, I was definitely in the 50s on those because I think it was UFC 56, Rich Franklin versus Nate Quarry. Where he
Oh
stuck
yeah.
out. But like I think the first pay-per-view that I was involved in being part of ordering it,
Right.
watching it live, I think the main event was like Chuck Liddell versus Vernon Tiger White.
Oh, that's a crazy knockout if I remember correctly.
Dude, I don't even remember the fight. I just remember like we were into that.
Yeah.
Like me and a couple friends were like, we're getting into this.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, we didn't even know who they were, but we were like, hey, we're gonna like before we even like, it wasn't like, oh, we saw the sport and then became fans.
Right, yeah, you make the
We
decision.
made the decision. Hey, we're gonna be fans of this sport. Okay.
Yeah.
How? You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, well that's very interesting. I'm sorry for taking that tangent.
That's what this is about.
But yeah, that was interesting to me. Okay, I really like that. All right, so, I'm sure a lot of the audience knows, but you are a Penn State alum. And you are the former captain of the Penn State boxing team, right? So, did you do any like official boxing prior to college, or just from
Yeah, so
with your coach?
I did traditional martial arts from 13 through, I don't know, whenever 18, I guess. And I wrestled for a year, City League.
City League High School.
And then go to Penn State, and I wanted to do MMA, but they didn't have like an MMA club or anything available. And there was a gym off campus, but that just like felt like big barrier to entry, you know what I mean? And so I was like, you know what, like I'm just gonna join the boxing team, and I'll do that for a while, and then I'll make my transition, and yeah, went, tried out, and then just kept working hard and fighting, and became the captain.
Dude, that's awesome. That's awesome. So, did you begin your freshman year?
Mm-hmm.
So 4 years
Mm-hmm.
of boxing.
Had my first fight freshman year too.
You fought as a freshman too.
Yeah, like not all of them, at least when I was there. Like you don't always fight your freshman year, but I had it.
Had a little bit going for you.
Yeah.
So, outside of boxing, which obviously was incredibly pivotal
Mm-hmm.
in your life, what What else did you do at Penn State other than box? Like, what did you study?
I studied kinesiology, so that is the science of human movement.
Science of human movement.
Basically, think exercise science,
Okay,
right?
so
And Kines has like a really good program. They had like the dude who wrote that guy was a professor there when I was there.
oh,
Um,
nice.
you know, whenever you hear a Soviet name, Zatsiorsky, you know that like
Yeah,
he's gonna have some good stuff.
yeah, for sure, for sure. So, graduated with a degree in kinesiology from
hmm
Penn State. What did you think you were going to do with that degree?
Oh, dude, I wasn't really sure. I thought I was gonna be a PT, and I actually applied to some PT schools. And for a while, I was like, oh, maybe I should go and be a doctor. But then I was like, dude, I don't want to be in school like that long,
Yeah,
and then like I don't really want to work in a hospital. And
yeah,
then like when you think about it, like being a doctor doesn't sound that fun. And then I was like, oh,
no,
maybe I'll be a PA, and it's like doctor light, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Just
yeah,
like
yeah.
not real responsibilities. But then you're still in a hospital, and I was like, all right, at least being a PT, at least I'm like using like exercise and not like just medicine.
Right.
I shouldn't say just medicine and brush it off. It's a very important thing, but not for me.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I was like gonna be a PT, and I was like, okay, like this is the direction I should go. And like there were a bunch of different options within the kines program. So you could be like, there was one that like puts you on the road to be a gym teacher, which while still kind of a life goal of mine, wasn't what I wanted to do like forever.
Right.
Um, and then there was one that I think was like the road to being a PA, one for PT, and there was something else. It doesn't matter, but I did the one like to be a PT,
Okay.
and I applied to a couple different schools. I even went in and like I forget what the process was now that I'm thinking about it, like where it was, if I was just like checking it out or whatever. But I got on the wait list at Chatham,
Oh,
and I dude, now I'm mixing up the things here, the order of events as I normally do.
dude, this is so on brand.
This is
So
so
on
on brand
brand.
for me.
Like he can't keep a timeline together to save his life.
Oh, dude, I'm the worst.
Yeah.
But I think what had happened was I got an email saying I was on the wait list, but I had to respond within a certain amount of time to like keep that spot, and I think I didn't. And I think that subconsciously, that was me just being like, I don't actually want to do this.
Right.
And then like I did all these like internships and shadowing and stuff, and I spent a lot of time in PT offices. And like, dude, it was just 99% the same thing. It was just like people coming in with X, Y, and Z, the PTs prescribing the exact same thing, and just like it was just boring to me. And also there seemed to be like a hard cutoff. It was like, someone's injured or severely lacking in their functions, and they're gonna do these like very, very light exercises that we'll, consider PT exercises. And then they get up to the point that they are normal, right? And also normal, like what does that mean? Like, dude, some of the PTs would just put everyone on a return to run program. And I remember one person in particular, they were like, oh, so you got like this knee issue or you're returning from ACL surgery or whatever. And they're like, you're going to do the same exercise everyone else does, and we're going to put you on this return to run program. And the dude was like, yeah, I don't run. And he's like, yeah, this is what you're going to do. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. And then like another place I worked at, it was like exclusively older people. And while that is very, very important work, and like getting back to the initial point is like they would come up to like whatever you call baseline, and then that was that, and then they like back off into the world. And I'm like, I feel like there's a hard cutoff at PT and strength and conditioning, and like I think that you should really,
Like there should be like a Venn diagram of overlap
I
instead of it.
not even overlap. I think it's just one spectrum, and like I don't think that there should be that hard cutoff, and I think that that's like a bit of an issue. But
And do you
whatever.
think it's like a medical billing thing?
I mean, it's the training, and again, like this is all outdated information. This was 10 plus years ago, like, but yeah, I just didn't love it, and I didn't think it was that cool. And like I said, I worked at another place with older people, which again, very, very important. They PTs were really, really good if you are lacking functions, but like I don't really have the patience for that, and I'm just like so enamored with fighting at this time that I
Yeah.
just like can't. Dude, like I remember at this interview I did for the PT school, they kept asking me all these questions, and it always just came back to boxing because that was my whole life. You know what I mean? Like that's all I cared about. So yeah, I realized pretty quickly I was like, nah, this isn't for me.
Okay, cool. So you graduated from Penn State in the spring of 13,
hmm
right? Let's talk about your entry into Stout. All right. So how did you get started at Stout, and like what was the time frame of that?
Okay, so I graduated in 13, and right around there is when I realized like I don't want to be a PT, but I'm graduating college, and all I'm qualified to do is lift weights and punch people in the face. So like, what am I gonna do now? If we rewind, like, I don't know, 2 years maybe.
Yeah, yeah. It was either in between your freshman, sophomore, or sophomore, junior.
It must have been sophomore junior.
Yeah,
That makes more sense. My boy Kevin, shout
yeah,
out to Kevin, had gone into the gym to sell Warren, I think, advertising or something.
yep,
Warren sold him a membership,
yep.
and Kevin was like,
Here
"Dude."
goes a life lesson in sales. Here goes a life lesson
Yup.
in sales.
And he was like, and Kevin was like, "Dude, you got to try jujitsu." And like, I am, in love with MMA at this point, and like I'd wrestled, and like he didn't, it didn't take much to convince me. So I came and trained at Stout when it was
In
at the
Lawrenceville.
first gym. Yeah, the little hole in the wall, not much
Yeah.
bigger than the
Not
studio.
much bigger.
And my first class was with you.
I was the teacher?
Yeah,
Me?
you.
Dang, dude,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, and I want to say
Did I do a good job?
you did a great job. Yeah, you taught a takedown to some sort of guard pass to some sort of choke or submission or whatever.
Okay.
And we rolled the first day. It was sick. And I think you were a blue belt maybe. Dude.
Yeah, I mean,
Like,
I would have been. I didn't
yeah.
get my purple belt until above donut shop.
Yeah, and it was awesome. And
That's
like,
how crazy is that? Like, it's rare to see a blue belt teach.
yeah, yeah.
But
And
like,
but back in the day, like that
this is
was,
now what, like 13 years ago, 12, 13
Yeah.
years ago.
yeah. And I mean, it was a great class and it was awesome. And you and I hit it off, and I loved it. I thought it was super cool. But I was also leaving, so like,
Yeah.
I knew I was just training for the summer. But like I was dedicated. I remember like going out and like partying with Chris and like telling the whole squad like, "Yo guys, I'm not going hard tonight. I gotta go home early. I got jujitsu in the morning." Like,
That's awesome.
like about it,
Yeah.
And yeah, so then I go back to school, and like obviously not training jiu-jitsu at that time. Although take that back, I was at school. I would spar with Bill a fair amount, right?
Okay, yeah.
And Bill Algio, who's
Yeah, UFC. Feather.
yeah, now in the UFC, he's killing it.
Yeah.
And I remember Bill asked me to come to one of the gyms in the area to come and spar with him, and he was like, "Yo, dude, I'm teaching this jiu-jitsu class. You can stick around." And I was like, "Yes!" So like, I always loved jiu-jitsu, but yeah, I was focused on boxing. So then, fast forward, I graduate, and I'm like, "What am I gonna do with my life, dude? Like, I can't. I have this degree that doesn't really help me unless I like go on to PA school or med
Right.
school or PT school or whatever." And I was working as a personal trainer at Gold's, and I was like, you know what, dude? Like, oh, and then that's it. Kevin told me, he was like, "Hey, like at Stout, like they don't have a boxing coach anymore. Their boxing coach quit or got fired and whatever happened." And I was like, let me just take a shot in the dark, see what's up with these dudes. So I remember sending an email to, I don't know, maybe just the gym email address, whatever, and just being like, "Hey, I heard you guys don't have a boxing coach. Like, I just graduated. Like, I was the captain of the team. Like, I was okay.
Yeah.
Like I fought nationals, but like
Yeah.
that was it." So like, would you guys be interested? And I got an email back saying like, "Yeah, come in on a Saturday, which is our sparring day,
Right.
and like hop in with the boys and let's see what's up." And dude, I remember for like the whatever time leading up to that, I was so nervous because I was like, "Man, these guys are pros. Like, I bet they're gonna be so awesome. I'm just gonna hop in and just get like ruined and just
Dude,
like,
but you trained at the gym before.
but I'm not striking."
Yeah.
So, but like, I'm just like, there's
But
gonna
we
be.
didn't have striking when you trained at the
I
gym.
know.
So that should have gave you a
In
clue.
hindsight, it makes sense, but at the time, I'm terrified because I'm just assuming like all these UFC fighters are like in this gym and they're gonna be like just unbelievably good and just like freakish athletes and just so much better than me, and then I'm gonna like get beat up and leave tail between my legs. Like, I can't believe I thought I was gonna coach these guys. So I show up and I beat everybody up.
Yeah.
And I was shocked. I was like, "Yeah, you guys suck at striking. Like,
Yeah.
like you were the best striker by a good
By a
bit."
large margin.
And just by being a dog, like not
Yeah.
super technical.
Yeah, no. I
And
had, like no real like striking.
yeah, and I remember like some like larger people like really like hucking at me and me just being like, "You're not gonna hit me," and just like
Yeah.
dropping dudes. And like, actually I remember I dropped someone like pretty badly,
I remember.
and I remember being like, "Oh no,
Are you gonna get in trouble?
yeah, like are they gonna hate me now? Like what if that's like one of their star guys?" Like, and Warren was just like, "This is awesome," So yeah, like literally by the end of that practice, I think you and Warren took me aside and you're like, "Yo, dude, like, you want to start like training us up?" And I was like, "For sure." So I would come and train you guys, I think 2 mornings a week,
Yeah, we
and then
did
I'd show up on
2 mornings.
Saturdays, and I think I would just hop in and spar.
Yeah.
And yeah, I did that for like a year until I was able to work at the gym full time. Which the way that happened was Warren had openings for two part-time positions. It was like a bookkeeper and something else. And I was like, Warren, I'll do both of those jobs just to be full time and
Yeah.
like stop working at Gold's Gym, right?
Right.
Because like being a personal
Were you a
trainer,
personal trainer?
yeah, that sucks. Like you're just like people come in who don't want to work out, and then you're like teaching them how to like squat and stuff, and it's
Yeah.
just like not
Bro, I want to take
awesome.
it back to the early days though. That when you would come in and train us on Tuesdays and
Hmm.
Thursdays mornings, you would come in
Yeah.
and we would just do boxing
Hmm.
training, well, like striking training, but
Hmm.
primarily boxing training for a while. And like, you're like a personal trainer also with a kines degree, right? So then we went and bought weights. Remember?
Yeah,
Yeah, we bought weights.
I was like, hey, you guys are like,
Do you
professionals,
lift? We were like, nope.
and then you guys don't lift weights. Like that's not that's not how this should work. And so yeah, we got like a crappy old squat rack.
Put it in the elevator shaft.
Yeah, we put in an elevator shaft. We had this crappy little back corner. There was, I mean, literally an elevator shaft,
Yeah,
and it'd be like, 4 or 5 of us back there.
it was like where like the building used. It was like where the freight elevator was, and the building used like that like room outside of the freight elevator to like store like leftover construction,
Yeah,
like
yeah,
pieces of plywood cut awkwardly. Like it's like they cut a triangle out of this plywood to put up here,
Yeah.
and the scraps.
right.
It was like all the wood scraps were in there and stuff.
It looked like we're like in a movie where like a mob boss would like have like a deal go down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it was like
yeah,
shady, like
yeah.
in the back. Yeah, we just threw up a squat rack there, and yeah, we just got busy.
Yeah, we were lifting with the Lord.
You looked at what the Lord, the, Warren Rocket. What did Cody call him? The Jerusalem 2000s. Oh, it was fantastic.
So also in those early days, what car were you driving? What was your car?
Brother, I didn't own a car until my 30s, dude.
How would you get to it from the gym to train us?
You would come and get me.
I would go pick him up in the morning,
Yeah.
drive him to the gym, have him train us, and then I would drive him back.
Yep.
Yeah, dude.
Oh,
Man, that's wild. Those were good old days,
dude, great times.
Yeah. Good
Like in
times.
hindsight, there was so much like uncertainty with like all of our careers, really,
Oh yeah.
and like, yeah, and the sport in general. I don't. Was it? I guess it would have been legal at that point in PA, but
It
like,
was, but like,
just barely.
no, I had fought in PA at that time. Yeah, I started fighting in PA in 2011.
Right.
That was my first fight in PA.
But, like-
fought '07 till 2011 outside of PA.
Yeah.
You couldn't.
Right. So like it was just again during the time it was like stressful, but in hindsight, man, great times. And the other thing that was cool too, and like especially people who are like newer to the gym might not like get this, but like we have so many locations now and the gym is so big and we all have so many responsibilities that like I might only see Vince like once a week. I might go 2 weeks without seeing Vince.
Yeah.
Like I might not get to train with like a bunch of different guys like a lot of times. Whereas when you had one gym, everyone
Yeah, we were all together
was
all the
all
time.
together every day.
Yeah.
And like, there's pros and cons to all of that, but like, yeah, it was a real special time.
No, but that I miss the times of everybody being together.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the same thing. Like, like you go, like it's just like it was weird. I remember when we first opened the Cranberry Gym before it moved to Zealy, right? And it was like weird. It was like because like it was like Warren and I were like the jiu-jitsu instructors. So if he was in the strip, well then I had to be up there.
Right.
And like we were so pumped to open the second gym, and then like when it opened, I was like, dude, like we don't hang out at all anymore.
Yeah.
Because one of us is teaching jiu-jitsu at
Right.
the school, right? There's only two of us.
And also, like at that time, we were younger. We have less responsibilities,
Yeah.
so it could be like, "Oh, hey, we just finished training at like 9. Let's go like grab a beer and hang out." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And like,
Yeah, do whatever.
yeah, you can do whatever. There's no real responsibilities, And now we're like adults and
Yeah,
you
no,
know.
like, my entire day is structured from wake up till I go to sleep.
Yeah.
Tell you what I'm doing at every moment. Like, okay, so let's circle back to the two part-time jobs.
Right, yeah. So I was like, hey, I'll do both of these jobs to work full time, right? Like I want to do this and I do not want to be a personal trainer anymore.
Yeah.
And Warren looked at me and was like, yeah, no, that's not for you.
Oh, bro.
But I've got something else down the line. He goes, I need you to wait.
Tell you how much I can relate to that. When we hit my origin story, you guys are gonna understand, dude. It's like Dude, it's like his thing.
Yeah, yeah. But it's like he'll tell you no, and then he's like, "But I got something planned for you." And
Yeah.
so it was just like, just
But he won't tell you what the plan is.
oh, he told me like
Oh.
roughly. He was like, "We're gonna start like a strength program, and we could probably pull you on for that."
Uh,
And I was like, "All right, that makes sense. Like I could do that." Now the building we were in at the time was it the donut shop, Jim?
yeah, it
Yeah,
was donut shop.
it was above the donut shop in the Strip District. Is it still a donut shop?
Yeah, so the donut shop was on the right of the elevator, and then Thin Man's was on the left.
That's right.
And now the donut shop took over Thin Man's spot.
Got you. Oh, Thin Man's. Dude,
So
they had
Peace Love and Little Donuts in the strip.
they had good chicken liver pate.
The Thin Man's was good.
They were good. But anyways, yeah, so we're above that gym and it was like a big office building and we had like one big chunk of it and which is crazy now because it was like so much smaller than all
So
the
small.
gyms
Yeah.
since, but like compared to the first gym, it was huge. But what was cool is there were other offices within it. So you could like there was room to expand. So Warren got another office and we converted that to a weight room.
Yeah.
And it was just big enough for like 2 squat racks and
Yep.
like a row of kettlebells and like that's pretty much it.
That's it.
And we started running strength classes there, and that's what I got initially hired as is like being the strength coach. So I would run strength classes in there, do kettlebell
Look at
stuff.
you using your degree.
Well, what was funny is a lot of it was like kettlebell based. I think it was actually marketed as a kettlebell class,
Yeah.
and
'Cause that was like Jarrett's.
right, yeah, Jarrett ran like the program there. So I had never really used kettlebells before that. So they like got me like a kettlebell certification, went and did that, crushed it, like got real good at, using kettlebells, which was really cool. And yeah, started teaching these classes and, coaching you guys up. And that's also when then, like, because I went full time, I started training a ton of jujitsu, training Muay Thai, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was cool because then, like, I wasn't I wasn't like training full time the way I would if well, kind of actually. I was training a lot because again, I'm young, my body recovers fast,
Yeah.
no other responsibilities. So that's pretty much all I did is I would like teach and train, and it was man, good times.
That's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
so I'm just gonna briefly just Cliff Notes version of my same story.
Yeah, yeah.
So we're in New York, and the gym has now grown to a position in which Warren can hire one person full time.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He can hire one person full time, but it's going to be to do the admin, stuff,
Right, yeah, front
right?
desk.
Like front desk, admin, answer emails, and all this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm working as an electrician at this time. Working as an electrician. I teach like a couple classes here and there, but nothing that can like get you a full time
Right.
deal. And I'm fighting professionally.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we're in New York and we're at a bar. And I'm like, Warren, you got to hire me for that job. I was like, you got to give me that job. I'll do it. That way I can be at the gym. I don't have to work, 8+ hours a day on the job site. I can, get better training.
Yeah, you don't need to train at 6 a.m.
Right?
and then
And Warren was just like, no. And I was like, what do you mean, dude? He was like, no. He was like, I have a job for you later. And he was like, you don't want that job. And I was like, yeah, dude. I was like, I want to not be an electrician. I want that job. And he's like, no. And then I was like, well, what? And he just was like, man, it'll work out later. And and he just left me and basically left me like that. I was just like, all right.
At least he told
Boy, did it
me.
work out. Boy, did it work
It
out
sure
later.
did.
Like in hindsight, right? And I didn't have to wait too much longer.
Yeah.
But in hindsight, yeah, dude, he says, he's like, that's not your position. You got to put the player in the right position, right? Like you're not going to put a quarterback on the defensive line.
Yeah, yeah.
Put him in the right position.
Dude, that's like pretty much exactly what he told me. But he did tell me like, hey, I'm planning on starting strength classes. So like this is your entry in.
Yeah. Yeah,
But-
so that's cool. That's really cool. That we have a similar origin story on full time.
Dude, we've got to get Warren on here to do the history of stuff. But another pod.
Yeah,
Another
no,
pod.
that's gonna be
That's gonna be like a 5-parter.
it's gonna be a deep dive. one.
Yeah.
We're probably gonna have to do it out of studio.
Yeah.
Also, and we might even pull some people in to have better equipment
Yeah.
for that. But yeah, definitely want to do that. Okay, so do you want to jump into where, so what we can do is we can talk about. We kind of started talking about the strength program and stuff. Do you want to go deeper into that, or do you want?
There's not a whole lot else to tell. Like it's I taught strength classes. That's really all there is to it. And eventually, like that kind of morphed in certain ways, and I started adding some like barbell classes and stuff
Right.
like that. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's
All right,
pretty much
so
it.
let's go.
Oh, actually, there's a funny story off of that.
Well, let's go with it.
Um, Although you know what, I take it back, dude. We added to the list. We're gonna do a whole pod about this, about
Oh.
CrossFit.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, 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 yeah.
The long and short of it is, I am technically a CrossFit coach.
Yeah, you are.
Technically speaking.
You are. Yeah. Yeah, so that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, but so here goes what I think like the people are going to be most interested in.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start. Let's wind it back to like what was the date of you like starting coaching us? Do you remember? It definitely was at least fall. It was.
I want to say November of 13.
I would like to think it was a little longer than that because I was supposed to fight December of 13, and something happened, and I didn't fight December of 13. But that was going to be your first time cornering me.
No, I'm pretty sure it was November.
No, no, I mean my fight was going to be in December, so I would like to think that I wasn't just working with you for a couple weeks and was going to put you in the corner.
I think I was.
Brother,
I could have been earlier, dude. Your memory is better than mine when it
here
comes
goes what
to.
I do know for a fact. When I was picking you up, it was not cold outside. So that leads me to believe that it was at least earlier fall.
Might have been.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'll say September.
That sounds
September,
good.
October, right?
You know what? Actually, no, you're right. You're right. It might have actually even been in the summer.
That I do honestly, I was gonna say summer.
Because I'm thinking about it, I'm like, I don't imagine me.
Well, actually, now that I think about that even deeper, I fought July 20th, 2013, and
I wasn't
that was
around.
my last fight before you.
I bet it was August, actually.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
that could make
that sounds
sense.
right.
All right, so whatever, that's splitting hairs. Who were some of the first fighters and fights that you physically cornered? So like,
Oh, yeah.
what was the first MMA fight you cornered? Do you know?
Oh, man.
So
Might have been Andy.
Might have been Andy. Wait, because that was the same card. Was that Andy's debut?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the card I was supposed to fight on it.
Okay. Yeah.
So that that all
Yeah.
wraps around.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was Andy. When you came, was Cody here yet, or did Cody move here after you?
He moved after.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Like it's yeah, like keeping people's timeline. It's difficult to do. Okay, so let's talk about some of like the early years fights.
Oh,
You know
dude,
what I mean?
it was fantastic. So I start coaching, right? And we've got your professional. Um, we had a bunch of like higher level AMIs. We had Jonas, Grossface. Eventually, Cody came on.
Yep.
He brought Justin.
Oh yeah, Justin Joseph. Yeah.
Oh man, who else was on the team at that time? Andy was still fighting.
Sastok.
Sestock was fighting.
Did you cut
Dino. I don't remember if I cornered him. Yeah, I don't remember if I cornered him, but he was on the team as well. And then there were a couple, stragglers, guys who didn't stick around a whole lot.
Right.
But we had like a nice little squad, and it was just, man, it was just so much fun. It was
It was
just
fun times.
fighting every opportunity we had, which like wasn't as often as like we have opportunities now, and so it kind of felt like a big deal. And
Yeah.
there were a lot of fights at like Stage AE, which like
Yeah.
felt really like huge and awesome. And like I saw a lot of like old school like Pittsburgh legends fight there, and dude, just to be like 23, loving MMA, and then being like, oh, I wonder if I can be like a boxing coach for one of these guys. Let's see what happens. And then like a few months later, I'm coaching professional fights. I'm like, dude, this is nuts. And yeah, dude, it was just like fantastic. And then that very like quickly went from like, all right, I'm coaching like amateurs, and I think you were the only pro, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I was in the
In Pittsburgh, to then you got signed to
Yeah.
CFFC, and now we're traveling and like we're seeing like the real deal, because like CFFC, dude, they put on some bangers at the Borgata, like
Dude, those were
so
my
professional,
favorite memories.
dude, so professional.
My favorite memories. I mean, so like, if you look back at like the chronological order, so like UFC is obviously like the big leagues,
Mm-hmm.
right? So then you have your next tier down, which is like You know, I mean, and then you have like your Bellator,
Mm-hmm.
and it was World Series of Fighting at that point in
Yep.
time. They were like the next step down.
Right.
Right.
Ryzen in
That,
Japan.
yeah,
Or was it
Rising and
Ryzen
Dream
or it was
and Dream.
Dream? That was it.
But they were like, they were like on the other side of the world.
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I never like had aspirations to be like,
Right. I was just saying like they're in
yeah,
that same tier, just below the
right,
UFC.
right, just below the UFC, and they're like the competitor. They're the people trying to
Right.
compete with the UFC.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have so like the UFC is 1A,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're 1B,
Right.
right? And then you have tier 2,
Mm-hmm.
which is like it was like Ring of Combat,
Yep.
CFFC,
Fury.
you guys will know LFA, Fury.
Mm-hmm.
Those are all tier 2. Now, the way that tier 2 has traditionally worked, there's typically one organization that is like the premier feeder,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like where like it just seems like like guys getting signed to the UFC mostly are coming from here,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's like the premier feeder. And when I was like an amateur, that was Ring of Combat.
Mm-hmm.
But by the time I was a pro, it was CFFC.
Yep.
Like easily,
Mm-hmm.
easily, dude. People were just getting pulled out of CFFC to the league left and right. And now, I mean, CFFC is still a prominent player. Now there's Fury, that's a prominent
Mm-hmm.
player. I'm probably forgetting somebody. It seems
LFA,
like LFA
yeah.
is like
The big one now,
is the big
yeah.
one. But I think it's like a cyclical thing.
Right, right.
You know what I mean?
Which, fun fact about your career, you beat a Ring of Combat champion.
I did. I beat a Ring of Combat champion. Yeah. Yeah.
He was a champ somewhere else too, wasn't he?
Shogun fights.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he's a two-time champ.
Welterweight champ too, right?
Welterweight champ.
Yeah.
He was a Nogi world champion. Just saying, big feather in my old cap.
Big one.
I don't even consider him to be the best person I fought.
Who would you say is the best?
Redmond.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I would consider him to be the best person I fought, and then right below him, I would put like Del Bruges and Petit Schnook
Yeah. Yeah.
and like Pope. Yeah,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But like Regman was like different.
Yeah.
All right, but go ahead. Let's carry on.
All right, so yeah, so then we're getting into these fights, right? And like then to me, like we're superstars, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like we're getting the full treatment. We're going to the Borgata. We've got our room paid for, like
Yeah, we're there for 4 days.
which like
You had
as
to come up, do media,
yeah,
right? Then weigh in, and
Uh-huh.
then, yeah, like
which like again as an adult, it's like yeah, I could just like go to like a
Yeah, I could
casino
just go do
hotel,
that, yeah.
but like when you're like 24, you're like oh my god, or 23, whatever,
it just had such big league vibes, right?
and
all the media that you had to do, the pictures, like
so
signing posters,
all that stuff was big. The production value was big, and like the Borgata was like a great location. Like that's a location that like
It's still my favorite place that we've ever even been to.
oh
Fights.
dude, I agree 100%. It was fantastic for fights, and they like you got to use the staff.
Yeah,
The
the Cavs,
cafeteria. Which, dude, oh man,
Dude, we got stories for that.
but but the biggest thing to me that made it feel like oh we're making it was dude that was right when Burt Watson started
Yeah.
because like dude so many people who like are newer to MMA probably don't even know about
Burt
Burt,
Watson.
but like dude in the early UFC days, not early but
Not
like
early, like the
early
mid-
for us, the mid,
I would say, like, honestly, like, so when did I go to this?
it was like the 2000s that he was there, right?
Yeah, he was there even in the 2010s. I'm trying to, like, put together my career. Like, when did I go to the CFFC? 2016, May of 2016.
Okay, so yeah, he was probably working
was
for the
probably
UFC
with
like
UFC,
late
like-
2000s through
Yeah, late 2000s through probably like 2015.
yeah.
Because Ronda, it was like Ronda era. He was there,
Right.
And like I heard, like that had something to do with him.
He just recently explained the whole situation and like named names and I
haven't checked
forget.
it, but Burt was awesome.
So yeah, okay. So for those of you who don't know,
We rolling.
Yeah.
Like, if you watch like old clips, like I'm sure you guys have seen like John Jones highlights and stuff. So even if you weren't into MMA in like the 2010 through 2015 era, like I mean, like you're gonna see him on like old highlight clips. Like he was the guy who would come get you. He like
he was like the showrunner and he would like
he,
keep
like, ran
things
the
on
show.
pace. He would make sure fighters were where they needed to
So he
be.
would go back and like when it's time for John Jones to walk to the cage for his title defense, he would come back and be like, "We rolling," and walk you to your
Yeah.
walkout
And he
spot.
just had great sayings, great energy. He was just the man. And like he ran the show. Like he would give like pre-fight like like announcements about like this is how it's gonna
This is how it's
roll.
gonna
If
go.
you
Right off.
needed something, you go and find Bert. He's the guy who's gonna make it happen.
Yeah.
Like he just he was the man. So Bert had some issues with the UFC. He had left, and CFFC picked him up. So now, to me, I'm like, dude, I feel like I'm like working at the UFC, dude. It was phenomenal, and yeah, dude, like again, just like great times, great wins, and the other thing that was really cool about that is Mike was brought in B side to lose,
I was brought to lose.
and so then it was just like this awesome, underdog story where Mike comes in to lose to a killer and then beats him up. And dude,
And then they were like, "Oh damn, we thought you should lose. We're gonna make you lose this one.
yeah,
Beat him up again."
yeah, dude, and like, so we have two of these in a row, and we're in this location. It feels so professional, and we're partying hard afterwards and having great times. And like, dude, it was just such like a golden era
Yeah.
of my career. So
Sure.
yeah, man, like that was a real highlight.
Yeah, dude, those were some good times. And you were also around early enough, and I mean, it kind of still goes on to experience like the low level,
Oh, let's talk about that. So,
low level.
um, the Yankee Lake doesn't exist anymore, right?
No, Yankee Lake does not.
Okay, cool.
Because the guy who was the Yankee Lake promoter is now the Ohio
Oh,
State
that's right. Yeah,
Athletic
yeah. Okay,
Commission.
all right. I'm sure he wouldn't even care that people like I don't want to say look down on Yankee Lake, but like it was a rinky-dink show way back in the day, and it was the Wild West, dude. It was crazy. So I remember, oh, dude, one of the earlier fight cards that I cornered, we go to Yankee Lake. I think Cody was fighting on that,
Yeah.
and dude, some kid sees me wrapping hands. And like, dude, also at the time, I'm not great at wrapping hands. I'm like acceptable, but like,
Yeah.
I'm not awesome at it. He sees me rapping and goes, walks up to me and he goes, "Hey man, can you wrap my hands?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure." Like, your corner guys like jujitsu guys, or like, what's up? And he's just like, "I don't have a corner." And I was like, "What?" And he's just like, "Yeah, I just like showed up by myself." And I was like, "That's crazy." And like, no one from this kid's gym came to corner him. Like, that's nuts to me. Then
Yeah.
I find out this kid doesn't train at a gym.
Yeah.
I'm wrapping this kid's hand. And dude, also he's like, "Yeah, don't worry, I brought supplies." I'm like, "All right, cool." He had brought like strips like this long, like of gauze, like that you would put like on, like if you had a cut and you put
Yeah.
like a patch on it, like a 4x2 patch. He brought a bunch of those, and I was like, "Dude, what do you want me to do with this?" And luckily we had like extra. But I'm wrapping this kid's hands, and he looks at me. And he goes, "Yeah, I probably should have trained a little more for this." And I was like, "Dude, like that is not what you should be saying right before getting in." And like, bro, it was nuts. Like, I know that we have independent fighters like still, but I mean, obviously significantly less so now. But I'd be willing to bet most independent fighters are guys who like they wrestled in high school and then they went to a gym for a month and then they have a friend who held pads for them and then they showed up in another gym and sparred a couple times, and you know what I mean, like they're not training properly, but they're kind of training.
Yeah.
Like, I think this kid probably just like was like, "I'm tough." Hit a bag a couple times, just showed up. Like,
Yeah, I saw it on TV, so I could do that.
yeah, dude, it was nuts. And what's crazy about that era is like you'd think like, oh, okay, you have guys who train for real, and then you have those guys, and like those guys just get crushed like every time. But that's not the case, dude. Like sometimes those guys ended up being dogs. Like
Yeah.
from what I understand, and maybe he'd been training somewhat, but from what I understand, Matt Brown kind of did that.
No way.
I I might be slightly off on this. It might have been that he'd started training and he was just like at some fights and was just like kind of like you did one time, just like, "I'll fight," you know.
Yeah.
But if I remember correctly, and I might be mixing up stories, Matt Brown was kind of like one of those dudes. He's like, "Yeah, I'll fight."
When I did it, it wasn't like I came out of the crowd. Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like you,
I had already fought twice.
right,
Right. I was training. And I was there to corner Luke.
right,
And then like a guy fell out, and this is like, you can't do this nowadays. Like, it has to be approved through the commission.
right.
And we're at like weigh-ins, which are 3 hours.
Yeah,
So do 4 p.m. weigh-ins, 7 p.m. fights. And they're like, anybody weigh between 155 and 170? And I was fighting 145 at the time. So I was like 162.
Yeah.
And I was like, I do. And they're like, "You want to be the main event tonight?" And I was like, who am I fighting? And they were like, this guy. And I went over to my friend. I was like, how good is he at wrestling? And he was like, he's all right. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it. And I did it. And then I found out later he won Powerade, was a state runner-up and stuff. And I went over to my friend. I was like, what the hell, dude? And he was like, yeah, I figured if I told you that, you wouldn't do the fight. And I was like, yeah, what? And I was
Oh
like, well, good
man,
thing I did,
dude, I can't wait until we do this version for you, man,
Yeah.
because we got some banger stories of your fights.
Yeah. All right, so that's the problem with it. Well, I mean, I guess we'll have the same thing. Is like a lot of your stories involve me, whereas a lot of my stories are also going to involve you. So I mean, that's good.
Yeah.
So
All my like fight stories are like pre you. Well,
yeah,
not all. Well, yeah, no. Even the one fight I had after like coaching you, you weren't
yeah.
there.
No, he was in Thailand. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Thailand. Let's talk a little bit
Yeah.
about like you getting into being a more. So you came as a boxing coach, right? You had
Right.
some traditional martial arts background, which
Hmm.
you were, in my estimation, I'm going to say lucky to have a coach who had like a broader scope of thinking in there,
Yeah.
to where he was like, yes,
In fact, just so you know how awesome this dude is, Dwayne Adams, dude. Shout out to Dwayne Adams. He's the man. He got me into lifting weights. He got me into MMA, and also my gym, like the karate Tung Sudo gym that I was at. Um, it was like known at like the tournaments for like not being great at sparring, right? Like,
yeah,
um, and so like I remember, and like there were dudes who would like go around to tournaments and collect points to like go to national. I don't really know how the whole system worked, but like they were very serious about it, and they trained just for like those competitions. Whereas like I was breaking boards and doing katas and stuff, and I remember showing up to tournaments and people would like see me like wearing that gi and be like easy. And then like because I had this coach who like knew what was up, dude, I
yeah,
beat up some dudes who were not expecting it. I was actually like at traditional martial arts, I was real good.
yeah.
I did it. I don't know how many matches, like a gazillion of them. I only lost three.
Oh
One
shit.
was because there was some dumb rule where like if you were young enough, like if they kicked within like a foot of your head, it counted as a point. And I kept pulling on these head kicks and just racking up points for the other kid, right? So like whatever, don't care about that. Another one, I was beating a dude up. Were we just talking about this on the
When
pod?
you got choked.
Yeah, when I got choke
Yeah.
slammed. Yeah, I was beating that kid up and I lost that because they were upset about that. And then the last one I legit lost, and that's because I was a red belt, but I was real tall and I was skinny. And there was a black belt who showed up for like the black belt division, and he was one of those like hardcore, like I'm trying to make the Olympic Taekwondo type of dudes. And he's like a 200-pound black belt, and he's like short, like compact, like jacked, like and like a man too. Oh, this is the other thing. I lied about my age. So I'm like 16, and like with like men, um, which never was an issue except for this one guy. But like he was 50 pounds bigger than me, jacked, and a black belt, like lots of experience, and he beat the brakes off of me.
Hey
Like
man, it's good to have that.
yeah, like real bad.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't really matter. But those are the only three I ever lost. Other than that, I just crushed dudes. And again, like I'd be beating up like grown men and stuff too. So like I was good at that.
Yeah.
And then, okay, yeah. So back to back to Thailand. So I get to the gym. I've got like a little bit of like the kicks from traditional martial arts, and boxing, and obviously like the tiniest bit of wrestling, and now I'm starting to train jiu-jitsu. I'm also starting to train Muay Thai at the time, right? And so I'm starting to like learn different styles of kicking and more of the power style,
Yeah.
and clinch and knees, and just all the stuff that like I wasn't exposed to before. And Warren is like, hey, I see some potential in this kid to maybe work here long term. So like I'm gonna invest in him getting better, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which he has a whole lot, and we can talk about some of the other times too. But this was a big one. He's like, I'm gonna send you to Thailand. So he sent me to Thailand for like over 4 weeks, with like a squad of some other guys from the
Yeah.
gym and everything. And I was just like, hey, I'm just gonna go and like train and just get better so I can like be a better coach. And while I was there, I had an opportunity to fight. There's this dude Peck, who, if you guys look up Peck, Pek, you'll find some things online about him. Not necessarily the nicest things. Which in person, Peck, real nice guy, got nothing bad to say about him. But he started prison fights, which is like, kind of a ethically ambiguous area. Um, and and he also has this Vice piece written about him because he had taken some other Farang, like white dude, out to fight in Thailand, and I don't know if he bet on him or bet against him or how it all worked, but he ended up leaving the guy there, which is pretty much the exact situation I was in. He didn't leave me, but like same setup. Something else about Peck to know, like so Muay Thai like traditionally is about gambling. Like you'll see they do like little like gang signs in the crowd, and like one guy's the bookie, and they're like all signing like what their bets are, and the odds change round by round, and you'll see trainers or even the fighters like in between rounds looking up, seeing what's going on, and like the pace of the fight changes based on the betting. Like it's a crazy ecosystem in there, right?
Dude, that's so cool.
So Peck was training. We were at 13 Coins. He was training a guy named Sung Mani, and if you guys are currently into Muay Thai, you might know Sung Mani as like old school legend. Not old school. He's like 20 something, but like he was really really big like about 10 years ago, 8 9, and he's currently getting back into like some of the higher level. He just lost it in I think he joined the World Series, yeah, at Rajamnern. But he was like a champion. He was fighter of the year. He was like
the current
yeah,
number one fighter.
exactly.
Yeah.
He was like the highest paid Thai fighter at the time. He was like big, 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 right? Which was crazy because I didn't realize how big he was, and I'm like training with this dude day one and like clinching with him and stuff. It was wild. But anyways, I got to see Sung Mani fight when I was there, and Peck was like not in the corner, but he's one of his trainers and like involved in that gym and everything. Sung Mani had fought a dude he had fought like a bunch of times, so they got a lot of data on it, and obviously Peck sees him training a lot. Peck bet against him. So like that tells you what you need to know, right? So anyways, I'm training, and I had already decided I'm done with fighting, right? Like I was done getting hit in the head. I'd lost a little bit of that like fire of like wanting to beat people up. I really loved coaching. And I had no more interest in fighting. But I'm over in Thailand, and like, dude, I grew up loving all the traditional martial arts like movies, and there was a TV show called Fight World or something like that. It was Jason Chambers and some big football player dude, and they would go around and they train stuff, and one of them would then compete against like one of the locals in that style. And I remember thinking that was so cool. And here I am, and I'm like, I think I just turned 25. Yeah, yeah. 3 days before the fight, I just turned 25, and I'm like, I'm still young. Like, I'm not gonna have all these opportunities forever. Like, dude, I gotta do this. So Peck sets me up a fight. We drive out. Also, I like to eat all kinds of weird stuff, right? Yeah, and so I'm in Thailand, and there is all kinds of weird food everywhere. And I'm walking down the street, every street food stand, give me one of these, give me one of these. I'm eating mystery meat, whatever. So I got sick, and it was just so happened to correspond with right when I was supposed to fight. But I'm not gonna let that stop me, right? Like I made up my mind already. We're doing this. So they drive me out to this festival, like me and like a couple of Iranian kids, and some other people who were gonna fight. We go to this first festival, and it's that what's it called, Muay Baran or whatever it is, where they wrap the ropes. And I'm like, dude, this is sick because I'm physically sick. I really just want to finish this dude early if I can. If it goes late, I'm either going to run out of gas or I'm going to shit my pants. Like neither one of these are good options. And also where I have an advantage is boxing, right? Like my hands are nice, and I was really, really fast. And so if I have these wraps, I'm like, I am sure I'm going to knock this kid out. Like easy. So I'm watching the fights go, and I'm like, Peck, like, when am I up? And he's like, oh, no, not here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm chilling, I'm hurting. The only thing I ate that whole day was I had like an orange like smoothie, and that was it. And so I'm just like sitting there, whatever, fights are going on. One of the Iranian kids fought. He was supposed to then fight there, and then on the card I was on, but he got beat up, so he had to go home. So then they take us somewhere else, right? And I have no idea where it is. Somewhere near the Cambodian border, and it's like a festival fight, which is where a lot of like people like get their start in Muay Thai, right? You do the festival fights, and then you hit the lower level stadiums and the higher level stadiums, right? So I show up. I fell asleep in the car. I have no idea what time it is. I wake up. It's dark. I'm just there, and they're like, all right, pop out. We're in this like giant like festival grounds, and they have an area that's like fenced off with like a mesh fence that has like a covering, like you'd see at like a construction site, so people can't see in. So then people have to pay to go in and watch the fights and everything. So we go in there, And I'm like, let's get it. I pop my shirt off. I'm getting ready. And dude, at the time, you got to remember, dude, I'm lean. I'm jacked. I'm like probably like 175, 177 ish, and like that's pretty big for ties, right?
Yeah.
And
You're a heavyweight.
yeah, and the coach at the time, he's like, yo, put your shirt back on. Look small. And I'm like, what? And Peck is like going over to like the guys there to fight, and he's like, who's gonna fight this white guy? And there was a kid who he probably weighed like, I don't know, 165, 170. He was obviously shorter than me. He was slightly chubby, but like muscular. And he was like, I'm gonna fight him. And I was like, all right, right on. So I found out later after the fight, this kid had over 100 fights.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
Yeah.
like he was experienced,
I
right?
knew about that, obviously,
Yeah.
but yeah.
So yeah, I'm like getting warm, Peck's wrapping my hands. They squeeze my hands in these little 8-ounce gloves, right? And like I can feel my knuckles through it. I'm like, dude, this is fantastic. I'm still gonna knock this kid out. No problem. We'll do it early. I'm, not gonna put myself in front of like, all these Thai people. So I get out there, first round. I'm going hard. I'm like, this is my round, right? And I'm putting it on them. And dude, I've never hit someone so hard and had them just like not really react. And watching it back, I can tell like, oh no, I did hurt them.
Yeah.
But like in the moment, I didn't feel like I was hurting them. And dude, this knuckle, if you look at it compared to that knuckle, like
Yeah.
it's still real big. That's from that kid's head.
Oh wow.
So I turned this kid like the left side of his face into hamburger meat. I'm just crushing him with right hands. I'm setting it up easy, jabbing him whenever I want, stick a couple teeps here and there, but I'm mostly just boxing this kid up. And he is chopping my legs. Not as much in the first round. First round was me just beating him up. Exactly. But the second and third round, he is crushing my legs. And at this point, this kid is the Thai Terminator. He's not going away. Like I'm like I can't hit you in the head any harder than I have. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what's gonna happen here. And they're like, yo, you gotta go to the body. So second round is kind of more the same. He's getting to the legs a little bit more. Third round, he's crushing my legs, and I'm just like, all right, I gotta go all out to the body, and I'm landing a couple hard shots to the body. And after one of them, I'd have to watch it back to remember. I hit him in the body, and like 10, 20 seconds goes by. He's like a crazy delayed effect where he's like acting like he's cool, and then he just like backs up, grabs the ropes, and he's just like, nah. And I run over, I'm about to crack this dude, and the ref jumps in, does his job. And like at first I thought that like maybe he's like taking a dive. I was like, maybe it's not legit. Maybe like Peck paid this guy. I don't know what the deal was. Which, speaking of Peck, dude, I I had agreed to take this fight for 300 baht. He was like negotiating with me, and I was like, dude, I don't really care. Like 300 baht is like $9. I'm like, this isn't why I'm doing this. And he's like, okay, I think I can get you 300. I'm like, cool. So, anyways, so then like after like the fight stopped, he just collapses, and I can tell he's like legit hurt. And I was like, oh, right on. They raise my hand, I hobble out of the ring, and like as I'm walking out, dude, mad people coming up to me, taking pictures, and a lot of people just like feeling me and stuff. And I remember asking like the coach at the time, I was like, dude, what's going on here? Why are all these people like taking pictures of me? Like I know we're like, this isn't like a big stadium fight, like they don't know who I am. And he's like, we're in the middle of nowhere. You might be like the first white guy they've ever seen. I was like, oh, that's crazy. So I was like, let me be a good representative of the West. I'm taking pictures with everybody, you know what I mean? Like shaking hands, hobbling my way through because I got my legs kicked a gazillion times. And then like half an hour later, I go up to the opponent just to like shake his hand, be like, hey man, you did great. Point at my leg, be like, yo, you crushed my leg. And then when I say that, I'm like, dude, my leg. He's laying there and he's just like, oh, my body. Yeah. So yeah, that was that fight. That was cool. Now the downside of that was I wasn't legitimately good at Muay Thai at the time. I was good at boxing. So I got kicked in the legs probably 100 times.
So it ruined the rest of your time.
It ruined the rest of the time, dude. I couldn't like legitimately walk for like probably, I think it was 2 weeks. And like flying home with like your legs ruined like that, dude, it sucked horribly. Someone has some video somewhere, maybe I'll try to find it, of me like hobbling up some stairs in Bangkok, like can't move at all. And dude, in training, I remember one of the trainers was like, oh, I got you, I'll massage it out. He's Thai oiling it up, he's rubbing my leg, and I'm like, dude, no, like, no, we're just not playing with this. It hurts horribly. We're done. So overall, great experience. Glad I did it.
Yeah, I think an important experience.
Yeah, oh, for sure. First time, having someone huck elbows at me hucking elbows back. None of them landed, but I tried to knee the kid in the head. Didn't land, but I tried, and like getting the chance to throw kicks, no shin guards,
Time frame is this 2014?
2015. It was
Okay.
November 25th, 2015. Dude, look at me
Oh,
remembering dates.
wow. You
Yeah.
remembered it because it was 3 days after your birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that was real cool. And that, yeah, I mean, yeah, that was
Yeah,
that.
that's cool. How many times have you been to Thailand now?
3 now.
Three now.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that was the first time. I was there for like a little over 4 weeks. Then the second time, also 13 coins. That one was like 10-ish, 12 days, something like that. And then the last time, we went to Pechindi, and that was also around 10, 12 days, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Pechindi is a much nicer gym.
Yeah.
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 13
So you spent
coins.
about 2 months in Thailand.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe like just barely breaking, like a little over 2 months.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
along those
That's
lines.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So, what do you like better, Muay Thai or boxing?
I'm gonna have to go Muay Thai. Like, it's just so much. It's just so much like freer. There's just so much more available to you. You
Yeah.
know, Muay Thai has become my favorite striking sport, despite the fact that like kickboxing, you can argue is more like entertaining in some ways. I shouldn't even say that because Muay Thai done at the correct pace is entertaining, but Thai fighters have the tools to be able to slow it down. And also, traditional Muay Thai 5 rounds, the way it's done in Thailand is like at least 2 of those rounds they're barely doing anything. In the
Right.
last round they might decide to not fight each other too. So like
Yeah.
it's just yeah, that I don't love, but like Muay Thai done right, like entertainment Muay Thai, little gloves, 3 rounds, fantastic. The Thai fighters who just like get busy, and like are all action, like Muay Thai is just like the greatest sport, striking sport. It's just the most inclusive. And I don't want to hear about Lethwei. There's no good Lethwei fighters. What's that guy's name?
David
Leduc.
Duke.
Yeah. Fight some legit strikers, dude. That guy is going to get ruined.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you that. Which he fought on prison fights, fun fact.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not that he's not a good fighter, but like, dude, Lethwei is not where like the best fighters are. And sure, it's permissive, but like,
So is it not? What's the difference? Just headbutts?
headbutts, and the big difference is you can't win without a knockout. If no one gets a knockout, it's a draw. But
Wow.
but here's the thing, you might need 2 knockouts because if you get knocked out, you have a 5-minute period to revive that dude. So there are guys who get like they put in a coma for like a minute. Their coach is like, get up, and like dumping water on him and stuff. This dude like comes out of a daze, and then
Holy
a few
moly.
minutes later gets KO'd horribly again. You know what I mean?
Holy smokes.
So
That's
like,
crazy.
yeah, dude, that's just nuts. Oh, and also no gloves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so like it's different. But dude, Muay Thai, like legit sports where like there's actual like good high level talent. Muay Thai is just the best, man. It's so sick.
Do you think you like it? So, like, I mean, there could be arguments made for like narrowing it down, right? Like, when you narrow something down, you can get way more in the details.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because, like, oh, since we don't have to worry about knees,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know what I mean? Like the distance management's different and stuff.
And it opens up different styles too. Like Pernell Whitaker wouldn't like that's style wouldn't exist if the only striking sports were kickboxing because
Right,
like
yeah.
you can't get that low and do that kind of crazy defensive movement, and that's phenomenal. Him, dude, Prince Nassim, like even Tyson getting real low in his little like peekaboo
Yeah.
style. Like you're not gonna see that, and like I love that. Also, the pacing, I kind of touched on that. Muay Thai can be slowed down, but when it's done fast paced, then it's the most exciting. Boxing has to be fast paced because it's closer and because
Right.
punches are faster strikes, and you just get more of them. And kickboxing, obviously, faster because you don't have the same tools to slow it down. You can't catch,
Right.
you can't clinch, and so like that's real fast paced and cool. I love all the striking sports, but like, what if you were like, hey, you can only watch one striking sport for the rest of your life? It's got to be Muay Thai.
Now, do you think part of that is also because like it gives you more freedom as a coach to be kind of like creative and like the fact that there's more to it, there's more strategies available. Right? You
Exactly.
know what I mean? Like if we're playing rock, paper, scissors, right? There's only 3 things to choose from.
Right.
But if we like made a game of rock, paper, scissors and made it 5 things, and now everything can be beat by 2 things, like
Right.
type of thing. Like you know what I mean? Like
Think of it like this. So in boxing, they have like the classic rock paper scissors, right? They have the puncher, swarmer, and boxer, right?
yeah,
And it's kind of rock, paper, scissors. It doesn't really matter, right? But like those are their styles. Well, guess what? You could still do all three of those styles in kickboxing, and you could do everything that you could do in kickboxing in Muay Thai, right?
Yeah.
So like, there's just so many more options. Now, if you said you can only watch one combat sport for the rest of your life, it's gonna be MMA, because I just like what's most permissive and finding out like what really works, right? So like, which again is some of the reason why I do enjoy kickboxing, because you're going to see some crazy kicks and some crazy things you wouldn't see in MMA. But for like the purity of the sport, like oh, maybe tornado kicks aren't a good idea because if I miss it I'm getting taken down, or maybe like I don't know, axe kicks aren't a good idea because you probably will get taken down. And just like, you know, you find out like what legitimately works, you know, with everything at play. And I think Muay Thai is closest to that in striking.
Right. So where I'm getting at with like
Oh yeah, sorry, coaching. Yeah.
with the creative thing is like from a coaching aspect, you're one of the most innovative people that I've been around. You know what I mean?
Appreciate
with,
that.
like, innovating your craft. Whereas like so like I would say this is where you and I differ slightly. Not that I don't have any innovation in me.
Yeah.
Like I've definitely.
You've invented some real cool stuff.
Yeah, I've got like, you know, and like I don't necessarily think I've invented anything. I just like thought of different ways to
Right. Yeah.
do it.
Or rediscovered it, or you know,
Yeah.
you package it in certain ways.
Or repackage it for different purposes.
Right. Yeah. That too.
You know what I mean? Like Muay Thai with all the extra tools, it allows you more.
Yes.
It's like oh, so for example, if you were just like in the boxing, like you can paint with 3 colors, just for
Right.
example. But now Muay Thai, like you get like a whole palette, you know, to paint from. So I think that could like lead to your style.
100%.
You're incredibly like creative and like in the think like you'll take things from other people, right? You'll learn from other people, but you will also innovate for yourself. Whereas I would say I primarily like take, right? I'm like, oh, like he does this on his takedown, and then my thing is like understanding why that worked. Right?
Yeah.
So that way
Yeah.
I can like explain it better or utilize it better and stuff like that. And on the occasion, I'm like, you know what? If you did that, but like here goes the downfall. Your left elbow's down, but if you go here, it's up. Like, you know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Yeah, but I'm primarily like I like that like it's already a thing, and it's already a proven thing, and now I'm on it.
Yeah. Well, so okay, the kind of differences, or I guess okay, I haven't. Let's put it this way: I have never invented a technique. I don't think anyone in the last however many hundreds of years has invented a striking technique. They all exist. No one's throwing a kick, and you're like, dude, I didn't even know you could kick like that, right? Like they're all there. The back hook kicks, wheel kicks, round kicks of all different varieties, teeps, question mark kicks, reverse question mark kicks. Like all of these things have existed. In every variation of punching. There's really only 2 types of punches. There's linear and there's circular. And what angle circular punches is, you know, whatever. Like they all exist. So I've never invented a technique, but I have invented ways of like combining those techniques. And I don't mean in a combination, right? I mean like, how do I say this without giving some really key things away? Like, let's just say stringing them together in shorter ways, think of tactics, and then on larger systematic levels with like strategy and systems. So like being able to systematize it, I think is what I've really like, if you want to say that I've like innovated, it's in the systems, it's not in the technique. You know what I mean?
I fully agree with that it's in the systems, not like because there's not like much to invent.
Right.
There's not
Exactly.
much to innovate.
And
so all the innovation is going to come in the place where there's still innovative.
right, and that really only exists in like jiu-jitsu, I think. Like it's just, and maybe wrestling, but like,
Well, so the space in Muay Thai is like with like systems and like
Yes.
concepts and protocols.
and what's cool about that, so I originally started like trying to organize everything in systems because 1, that's just like how I think, and 2, I was like, fighting is such a chaotic thing. Anything could happen. The better fighter doesn't always win. Like there's so many variables involved, right? So how can I identify all those variables, systematize them, package them in ways so that I can make it easily accessible to the guys I'm coaching? Because what I need to do is take this big chaotic wild thing and which is, we'll just call it a game, and teach our fighters what the game is, right? Because if you don't know what the game is, you can't play it well, right? So like if I'm like, hey dude, we're gonna play chess, and you're like, I've only ever played checkers before, and I'm like, it's similar, and we just start playing, there's all kinds of intricacies that you just don't even know about. Like,
Yeah.
obviously I'm gonna win, right? But if I teach you everything that you could, like, there is to know about chess, and then you go and play it, now you have like a massive advantage. And like, that's what like the systems are for. Now there are certain things that I would call maybe tactics that I think I did invent. There's one thing in particular, I can't say, I'll tell you later, that like I've never seen anyone ever do it, other than like our guys, and like I've looked for it, and that's not to say that it hasn't existed. You know what I mean? Like, maybe even like hundreds of years ago, like they did it all the time. Who knows? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But I'm pretty sure I invented at least that one thing, and then the systems are like really
Yeah,
where I've
yeah, that's where I see
innovated. Yeah.
your innovation is in those systems and stuff. And like I think like it doesn't give too much away to be like it's just like a way for like people to understand the bigger game by making it more simple.
Yeah, yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I mean?
Like, if it, and here's an easy way to explain it. Like, if I'm like, hey, I'm gonna teach you how to do jab, and you're like, all right, cool, and then you're like, okay, well, why do I do this? And you're like, oh, it's a setup, and then like, oh, okay, cool. What's it a setup for? Your right hand. Okay, cool. So I'm just gonna jab and then throw my right hand, and it's like, will that work? Sure. But like, there's so many other intricacies that you could think about. So it's like, okay, well, what is my jab? Well, it's not just a setup. It's also a tool to like do damage, right? And also like, what is a setup? And like, is it a setup in an immediate sense? Is it I'm going to throw a jab and then immediately throw a right hand? Or is it that I'm going to jab and then I'm going to jab again, and then I'm going to double jab, then I'm going to fake a jab and then I'm going to keep jabbing so much that all you're thinking about is this left hand. So when I do throw a right hand, it just wasn't even on your radar. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
those are both valid. And then what is a setup? Is it a strike? Is it a feint? Is it other types of movements? You know what I mean? Like, and so again, there's just ways you can categorize things and systematize them so that, if you knew all this before you learned that jab, or as you're learning the jab, like, now you can implement it in a much more, effective way. And I just think that's like really, really important and sometimes lacking, because sometimes striking coaches do just go like, hey, here's a jab, go use it. And they're
Right.
like, well, in what context,
Yeah.
So
Okay, so do you think this is wow man, I don't know if we should go down this rabbit hole. So I kind of you know what, whatever. We can do whatever we want. It's our
yeah.
podcast. Do you think that it's better for an athlete like so like like when an athlete is learning something, is it important to see the light at the end of the tunnel? So like for example, like if I'm teaching someone, an arm lock,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm like, okay, I want you to get to the arm lock in this fashion,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I'm like, because if we do it, then we have A, B, C, and D
Right.
as backups if they react in certain ways,
Right.
right? And it also eliminates this for them. Or like, is it more important that they're just getting the arm lock going, and then later after they have the arm lock, like going in the way you want, then you're like, okay, so now
Mm-hmm.
here goes why that's really good because you're getting stacked, let's sweep.
Right.
Okay, you're getting overstacked, let's go under. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
All right.
yeah.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about
Because a
this.
lot of times I show people the light at the end of the tunnel. Right? And
Yeah.
I'm like, hey, we're not doing that, but just so you know, right? Like the reason we're doing it like this is so
Mm-hmm.
that way we have this
Yeah.
available to us later.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can do it like this, and then it's got to be just like that and no other way, and there's nothing else that can happen.
Okay.
Or else it's a failure.
Again, spent a lot of time thinking about this, and I think that it varies on who the person is and also like what that exact technique is. So there's certain things that I teach where I'll show maybe a string of techniques that all work together, create a dilemma, or do whatever, and then I'll go and like I'll teach that whole thing, and the fighter understands it, and they get that pathway, and then I go look at how this other pathway that connects to it, and then they have this like moment, but because you showed it to them after they learned all of it, it like clicks really heavy. Whereas if I was like, hey, I'm going to show you guys, a setup that's going to result in X, Y, and Z options, like I feel like it doesn't always click. And there's like specific things that I teach in that way where I want the athlete to have that epiphany themselves, right? So it kind of depends on what it is, but more importantly, I think it depends who it is. So there's two ways of looking at it. I think that like for the like average practitioner, the hobbyist, the person who like doesn't want to even compete, right? Like, um, someone comes in and they're like, hey, I'm 35. I've never done any sports. I got to stay in shape. This is, boring lifting weights or running or whatever they're doing. I just want to do something else, right? And like, no, whether they aren't going to be physically capable of it or they don't want to, like they're not going to fight. Then I'm like, hey, I just want you to have like a good time and learn this somewhat properly. I don't want you to like sometime go to another gym or whatever and they're like, where did you learn that? That's awful. You know what I mean? So then I teach them like I guess you'd say ground up. Like I'm like, hey, here's these techniques, right? And we've talked about this a lot about kind of like how we teach technique, concept, style, but like I'll be like, hey, here's all these techniques, and then here's how they work together, and then here's how these ones would work together, and here's how this, and then like here's how these systems work together, and here's how you can do that to create your own style, and this, and this, and we kind of build from the bottom up without the end goal in mind, right? It's just they're uncovering new pieces as they train, right? But then you have people who, like Lucas is a great example of this, right? Lucas showed up to the gym having one fight under his belt, you know what I mean? And big aspirations. So like, am I now gonna go, hey, forget all that, let's just spend the next like year just building techniques and not fighting and whatever? It's like, no. Like I have to teach you some higher level concepts first. So like I'm still catching up on certain techniques. Like there's certain techniques that Lucas does where it's like, yeah, you're, whatever level at this, not like big time pro level at this exact technique,
Yeah.
but he understands the context. He understands, where it connects to other subsystems. He understands how to set it up. He understands the timing involved. He understands the risks and rewards of throwing those techniques. And so maybe if he's like, hey, I'm only medium good at like this particular technique, I can only throw it in this context, right? Or against this type of opponent or whatever it might be. So I think in that situation, it's good to go top down, because then the other thing is by teaching top down, he gets a bigger like understanding of the like the confines of the game. He understands the rules of the game and how it works. So again, he can navigate his way through it. Whereas if you just learn these techniques, you don't understand all these other things, and so it just like when you're actually fighting, that can really get you in trouble. So who knows, maybe in 5 years I'll feel differently, but that's like kind of how I feel about it now.
I really like that. Yeah. That's really good. All right, so what do you think are some pivotal moments throughout your coaching career at Stout that really helped you like kind of like guide you towards these type of like thoughts? Or do you think that you always just kind of like had that kind of like creativeness in you? Because like I mean, you come from a creative family.
Yeah. So like my dad's an art professor, right? My mom was a professional dancer for a while. She went on to like teach languages and stuff. I've grown up like going to art stuff and all kinds of weird music and stuff, and I played drums for a long time. So like, yeah, I would say that kind of thinking has actually like really helped me, and also like the like academia part of it, right? Like the systemization of like meathead stuff, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, I think the way I think has helped me a lot. But I'd say pivotal moments, obviously my entire like background, like pre-Stout, like formed how I think, and a lot of like, and I'm kind of like revisiting a lot now, like music theory ideas and stuff like really contributed to like the creativity aspect of it. But in terms of pivotal moments of being a coach at Stout, I would say that first day I showed up to spar,
Yeah.
that was like the confidence builder. That was like, oh, okay, like I'm legitimately good at this. Like I don't need to worry about like not being a high enough level to coach it, right? So because also I have no coaching history at the time. So like now, like plenty of people could beat me up, like on our team even, but like
I don't know about that.
but whatever. But
Maybe
like,
one. I can make a one.
well, like, but like at the time, I didn't have a coaching background to be like, this is why you should listen to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it was just like my fight background. So if I can't beat you guys up, then what business do I have like coaching you? So like that was like a big confidence builder for me, and like, all right, I'm in the right place. This is good. Then I would say, like, man, like every big fight for you, which was every fight for me, because like the first one I coached you on, oh my god, I'm coaching a professional, this is huge. And then
stage 8,
right, exactly, like wow.
Like you came in right for my first big fight.
Yeah,
You know, like I had just finished, like I would say my fight prior to you coming in was like my last fight where I wasn't either in a large organization or the main event.
right. So like I would like, that was like real big for me. I was like, okay, like, And I don't even want to say like I felt like I belonged there because I remember not feeling that. I remember us walking through stage AE, literally everybody knows you, dude. You're just like the king of Pittsburgh, just
Yeah.
walking through. Everyone's, what's up, Mike? Blah, blah, blah. Everyone loves you.
It's my
And
favorite
like,
thing.
dude,
It's
and
my
it is
favorite thing. I love
not
it.
my favorite
It
thing.
has not gotten old.
I am so
I love it
introverted.
every time. I love
Dude.
it every time.
You're introducing me to people. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Like, and still feeling like a little bit like, oh, maybe I don't belong here or whatever. But it was still a big moment for me, right? And then obviously you get signed to CFFC. Every single one of those fights was just huge because again, it's like reinforcing that like we're doing the right things. You're winning. Like we're doing some good stuff. You know what I mean? So like that's the early stuff. Then I would say the fight in Thailand, I think probably was a pivotal moment. One, just being exposed to high level strikers, right? So like seeing Sung Mani train day in, day out. It's like, okay, like I know what it takes and I know what like he's doing and I know what that level looks like, you know what I mean? So that was important. Then me fighting, that was also like important to like get that feel one more time, to know what it feels like shin on shin, to know what it feels like hucking elbows,
Yeah.
and just like, yeah. And also fighting as an adult, dude. I was like the calmest I've ever been before a fight. I was like real confident. I was just like, I'm just gonna knock this kid out. Just like don't get hit with elbows. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
And also like I'd done it. Like I had 15 boxing matches. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
all right, dude, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's chill. Um, so like I think that was a good thing. Like mindset wise too for me. Like there's just like a lot of cool stuff I took from that. Then I would say another big pivotal moment for me 2019, I take over the striking program completely,
Yes. This
right?
is where I want to get to.
And this is where so okay, then there's a couple things to go with this. One, there was like now I have freedom to teach my systems. I have freedom to like you know to do whatever really. And also like that was the first time Warren sent me, I think it was right around then, maybe not. No, that was later. Oh, Warren took me to Henzo, Maine.
Yeah.
We did that training trip around that
And
time.
so New York City,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Manhattan, not Maine is in like so like
Their
guys.
main academy.
Yeah,
right?
like like it's like Penn State like main campus.
Yes.
Like and have Pitt main campus, not Pitt like what I mean, not the branches.
Right. So like around that time, I started to feel like okay, like now I'm gonna like be able to come into my own as a coach, and just like feeling like maybe not that I was like ready necessarily, but feeling like okay, now I have this opportunity and this pathway exists. And then I was pretty confident. Like I've always been pretty confident in like my coaching abilities. But now I'm like okay, now I'm the main dude. Now I'm stepping it up. Like there's just like there's a certain, I don't know what sort of change. I think the best way I can describe it is the freedom is what like really like okay, now we're kicking into high gear. And then shortly after that, Warren sent me to the CSA coaching clinic, right? And that was tremendous on a number of levels. Okay, so one, I picked up some cool stuff, met some cool people. That's where I met Shane Faison.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like obviously learning stuff is cool, and I learned some subsystems and stuff that I've used since. It was like really valuable in that way, right? But secondly, I got to see. Well, okay, this is the most important thing, so I'll save that. Another thing I learned is like I'm not bad at striking. I got to spar with like a bunch of guys, and Clint. Maybe it was the second time I went, but like Clinch especially, I was like, dude, I'm nice with it. And I sparred some like good people there, and I was like, oh, like I'm
On the level, yeah.
yeah, I'm not about to go like be a world champion, but like I'm not bad. You know what I mean? So like there's that kind of reinforcement that's like cool. But then the biggest thing is that all those things that I learned that were new, that was a very small portion of it. A lot of it was stuff that like we were already doing for years, especially like the business stuff, how you run a program.
Yeah.
He's like, you got to do this, 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 and this. And I'm like, dude, Warren's been doing this for years.
Yeah.
And then like some things I'm like, actually, we do it better. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so like that gave me so much confidence. That's when I was like, dude, so okay, this is something else I've thought about a lot. In martial arts, they talk about like, oh, martial arts, you need to be humble, right? And you do need a level of humility. But I also think it's super overrated. And I think that like a lot of the best fighters, like if we have a sliding scale from like cocky, confident, humble, scared, right? Like, or like not confident, whatever we want to call that, right? Like that's sort of a scale, maybe not exactly like that, right? But like the best fighters usually aren't on the lower end. It's not like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't think I'm gonna do well, but oh, I just did. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
most of them are somewhere between confident and cocky, right?
Yeah.
And I don't see any problem with me being like that as a coach. And like in that moment, not in that moment, but like around this time, that's when I was like, oh no, I'm world class.
Yeah.
And I believe that now. Like I think I'm really good at what I
Yeah.
do, you know. But like having some evidence to back that up, like really felt good,
Yeah.
and like cemented that confidence. So yeah, that was big. Then okay, so that's around when I'm taking over. Oh, okay, so then, um, man, there's a lot of stuff. Okay, so then we have like the next gen, like our current generation of fighters, right? We have like obviously
I would
ebbs and
say we're
flows.
on our third generation.
Yeah, yeah. So like this latest generation, like coaching them up has like cemented a lot of that, and like also like really a lot of like the subsystems and stuff. I'm just like, dude, this we're on to something good here.
Yeah.
And just like seeing their success, like seeing Brody just like tear through all these amateur strikers, like and showing super high level stuff. Dude, last night I just rewatched the video of. Did you see the one that one posted of Luke, the chef, sparring Brody at our gym? Did you see that clip?
Is it when he pulls
Yeah,
one
big
across?
giant
Yeah.
pull. And a lot of the comments are like, "Yo, dude, that guy's
Oh,
awesome!"
I
Like,
saw that. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, and like that kind of stuff is just like so like wow, like we're like and again, I can't take credit because he's the one doing it, but like,
No, you can.
but I'm helping,
You can back that up. Yeah,
You
you
have to create the
absolutely
right
can.
environment for those athletes
I
to,
bet you if we asked Brody, he'd give you credit.
that would be very nice of him. But like, it reinforces that like, oh, I think I'm doing a good job. You know what I mean? So like that's really like awesome stuff, and like seeing how that applies in MMA especially is like really really fun for me. Something that I take a lot of pride in is like our fighters when they turn pro, they don't just look like good amateurs, which like we see a lot. MMA fighters, they go 8-1 or whatever amateur, and they're like, dude, it's time to go pro. And then they have their first pro fight, they just look like really really good amateurs. But like
Yeah.
not our fighters. Every single one of them, they look pro. Like they're using the pro techniques. They understand the pro timing of a 5-minute round. They're hucking elbows. They're comfortable in the clinch. They're throwing knees to the head kicks. They know how to defend these things.
Yeah.
And like that is like also like very like affirming that what we're doing is working. And so like yeah, those are I don't know, those are a couple pivotal things that kind of stick out to me.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So, you're not just a fight coach. You know what I mean? You coach, for lack of a better term, hobbyists.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
How big of a difference is it between coaching a fighter and coaching a hobbyist?
Dude, very little actually. And if you would have asked me a few years ago, I would have been like, "Oh, it's totally different." But it's actually not because there's so much variation within all of those people. They're just people, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
just some of these people are going to use it to fight, and some of them don't. And also, like we have hobbyists who are super legit and could fight. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, dude, one of the best guys in the gym at like clinching and elbows is Aaron. Right?
Yeah.
Shout out to Aaron. Aaron has never expressed any interest in fighting. Right? He like I don't think he really cares to. He's just about it. You know what I mean? And he's really really good. So good in fact that I make our pros who are going to be throwing elbows for real. I'm like, you guys have to get rounds with him because
Yeah.
like those are the quality of rounds you need. He's better than other pros at elbows and clinch. So like, you know, is coaching him different than coaching someone like who's like going to be a professional fighter? No, they both take in information the same way. They both have the physical ability to do those things. You know what I mean? Then you've got some fighters, they can't do certain things, right? I'm like, hey, we're going to start ripping head kicks, and they can't get their leg up there. And it's like, all right, well, that's not part of your game then.
Yeah.
And you might think of like physical limitations as being something that would limit a hobbyist, but like it still limits fighters as well. Then we have personalities, right? Some people are scared. Do you think all fighters are just like not scared? No, some fighters are terrified, right? I'd say more so probably. You know what I mean? And like knowing how to coach them through that, it's the same thing. And now it might be at different levels. It might be like, a hobbyist is scared to spar for the first time, and I'm like, hey, here's what's gonna happen. Here's how we're gonna control things. Here's how X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm gonna do to keep you safe. Whereas with a fighter, it's like you're scared to like actually go fight. And it's like, okay, here's how you can put it in context. Here's how, again, there's all these things that are going to keep you safe. Here's how like your training is like something that you should feel comfortable like relying on. So yeah, you face all the same trials and tribulations with, you know, hobbyists and fighters. It's just like to what degree and like what exactly are those things. Now, generally speaking, fighters are going to be a little more motivated to like train hard and soak in information because there are bigger consequences to them not knowing those
Right. Yeah.
things. But I would say overall it's the same thing.
Yeah, like with a fighter, there's a purpose and a deadline.
Yes,
You know
yes,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like with the hobbyist, and I don't mean that you know what? I don't even think it's that bad of a term. In jujitsu, it kind of like gets like a some
Oh, dude,
people like take offense to hobbyist.
dude, I'm a jujitsu hobbyist. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah, but like some people take offense to it. Like I just see it online. Um,
oh, those people are just don't have it in context then. Because if you think that being a hobbyist is a bad thing, then you better go do something bigger that people don't consider you a hobbyist. I'm a jiu-jitsu hobbyist. Again, I'm a professional fight coach. I work at a jiu-jitsu gym. You know what I mean? Like I've done jiu-jitsu competitions and stuff. Like I could understand someone being like, "Oh, you're not a hobbyist," but to me, it's a hobby, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean? Like there's plenty of things I do as a hobby. Like I'm really into like, you know, like my wife and I build like permaculture things and we're trying to like build like a little ecosystem and like that's a hobby to me. But like it's still very important for me and like I like
right.
growing my own food and like I don't know, dude, just I think that there's nothing wrong with having hobbies and taking
No,
them
for
seriously
sure.
too.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah, and I think you really been like on fire right now. All right, so do you want to let us give us any insight on like some of your goals for the future as far as coaching goes? You
Yeah.
know, it could be short term, could be long term, could be deep, could be
Yeah.
like whatever you feel like, you know.
Just fight, strength conditioning stuff too, just coach in general.
Yeah, let's stick it with like, you know, no, like just whatever, just like goals that involve like, you know, I don't want like your goals of like, oh yeah, I want like a new roof on my
Right, yeah, yeah.
2044.
Yeah.
You know what
No,
my goal
fight
really
related.
is? Yeah, yeah. You know
Got
what my
you.
goal really is to rip up that carpet downstairs and put down some hardwood. That I don't want to hear about.
I really want to learn how to play this song on
Yeah,
drums.
I don't want to hear about that. I'll
Got
hear
you.
about it anyway.
Okay. All right. So
But
fight
they don't need
related
to hear
stuff.
about it.
I
Yeah.
would say my
Fight
like.
or gym, just fight. Coach
Got you.
Gym. Like, cause like it could be like you know,
Yeah.
about like the program. It
Right.
could be, you
Okay.
know,
So I would say like the biggest thing that's like in my head right now is I want someone that we got bottom up. We can define that in a minute. I want to get them in the UFC. That's like a huge goal.
Yeah.
And then after that, the goal would then be to get them into the top 10. And after that, the goal is to, you know, get a champion, right? So like I kind of view those as separate goals, but it's all the same thing. And
Yeah, you ain't never gonna have a champion who wasn't in the
exactly, you know. So then like what do I mean by homegrown? Like does that mean that like they'd never done a combat sport? No, that just means that like most of their coaching came from us, you
Right.
know. So like Lucas, great example. He's headed on that path. Like
Right, yeah.
he had a fight, right?
He had a fight. He had a wrestling.
He had a
career.
crazy wrestling career, but the majority of what he knows as like a professional fighter is like what we taught him.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like,
Well, like someone else, I like so like for the other end of the spectrum, I would consider even Ramirez like home,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Honestly, like from on homegrown, right?
I
Like,
agree.
and these are dudes who are here, coming here. Like so, Ramirez finished his amateur career and then came here. Now,
Mm-hmm. Right.
you know, he's turning pro. From was already a pro,
Right.
But I would say that we've made a large enough impact
Yeah. To where it
on
matters.
their game to where it matters.
Right, exactly. And I think with Ramirez, that's like, for me especially, it's like very easy because his striking, sorry Josh, don't be mad at me for saying this, but his striking was not very good when he showed up. And now
Yeah,
it's
now
like,
it's really good.
it's very good. And
I
like,
mean, it's terrible, and so his jiu-jitsu's terrible too.
oh, awful. Yeah, yeah, guys, Josh is
Actually,
like not
Josh,
good. Like,
I can't believe someone let him even fight amateur fights.
wow,
I can't believe
yeah.
he's going pro.
Like if you're looking for an easy lightweight
You
pro
should
debut,
probably
you should definitely fight
Ramirez
Josh.
at 155. So
Yeah, yeah, as soon as
Yeah.
possible. He's like terrible.
Yeah.
But like,
Be an easy win for you.
but yeah. So okay, yeah. So getting someone in the UFC and then them, you know, progressing through there, and obviously that goal might change. Like maybe in 10 years, the UFC is not the top organization. I suspect they will be, but like
I suspect.
whatever the top organization is, then I would say striking wise, I really want to get a pro champ and in a respectable organization. So again, those changed a lot more, but like think a one champion, you know, a glory champion, whatever. You know, we got Brody fast tracking his way to there. Well, dude, honestly, I should say getting a striking fighter pro, that's a big goal too. And maybe I kind of glossed over that because Brody's like right on that verge. But yeah, he'll be the first pro striker we've ever produced, and like that's a big milestone. So that's a big goal, and then a champion professional striker, that's a big goal. Um, so yeah, those are probably the biggest fight goals. I would say like for our team, I would like to get to a point eventually where you and I are primarily coaching pro practices, and then some of those pros are teaching amateur practices and most of the classes, and you and I are doing a lot more like working on the system and not in the system. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah, that's certainly cool.
That's down the line, and that's like involved in the fight team as well as like the business structure. But like I think that would be really really cool, and honestly that's where if you have the correct manpower and correct organization, that's where you and I can do the most good, because if you and I teach something really good one time and then that gets dispersed, you can reach many more people
Yeah.
than if I have to teach these people and then I have to go teach these people and then these people, and now I'm out of energy. And so like I think that, whether you want to call that a fight team goal or a business goal, whatever, but like that's another big goal. Um, Strength conditioning wise, I would say I would like to, and this is like really hard to quantify, but like I want our fighters to, whether it's be known for this or just like in our group, whatever, like I want them to be like very like not injury prone, right? I would like for the strength conditioning to like work, you know what I mean? And so far, I think it's really good. I think the system we have is pretty good. And then on like a professional level there, I would like to rewrite that book and put it out, whether it's like a revised edition or a volume 2 or whatever we want to do. But there's stuff in this that's outdated already. There's things that I've learned since that I would like to put in there. Unfortunately, I have another book that's kind of like first in the pipeline. Dude, I've got like 10 books like in here.
So 2.0 of this is not the next book that's coming out. There's
Probably
a book coming
not.
out prior to 2.0.
Most likely.
So I suggest you guys get on Amazon, order yourself a copy of this book, Minimalist Training for Maximum Results, the Combat Sports Strength and Conditioning Manual. You'll find two handsome young men on the cover of this book, and right at the top, what's that called?
A blurb.
A blurb. You'll find a blurb by a famous professional MMA fighter who has now since retired. Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite fighter
There it is.
of all time,
There it is.
And yeah, there is some stuff that's outdated in that, but the vast majority of it is still fantastic. And like the general outline of the program, which is what that book is mostly about, is still what we use now, and it works really well. And like I get like Tim, for example. Tim wasn't really lifting. He probably wasn't lifting since like college. And then I don't know, maybe 3-4 months ago, he started lifting. Like 2 months into it, he was like, "Dude, I feel so much better." And like that to me is like what makes staying current on strength conditioning stuff like worth it to me, because it's not as exciting as striking is to me. You know what I mean? That's not what interests me as much. I still love it.
Interests me the least in all of combat sports. This interests
Definitely doesn't interest me the least, but like it's
What could
definitely
interest you less than this? What part of combat sports interests you less?
man, you know what? Maybe it
Anything
is.
Step out of that room and you put your foot on the mat is more interesting to me than anything that's happening on those rubber floors.
Yeah.
I can't think of a single thing. Right? Because what's the point of this?
It makes you better at
To make
on
you
the
better
bats.
when you step on the mat.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yeah. But incredibly important, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like,
You know what? There's a reason
kids
why
don't
it's
like
called
eat their vegetables, but like
vegetables are still important. There's a reason it's called minimalist training for maximum results. Like that
Yeah.
we want to spend the least
It's a
amount of time possible
tremendous
in there. But yeah, like that's I think because it's so important is what keeps me like current on that. Like I still have my CSCS, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I got that initially because I was like, if I'm gonna get any sort of good job, I need that. Like,
Hey, you spoke at a convention within the last year.
yeah, that was dude, I should have talked about that as a big career highlight.
Hey,
That
hold
was.
on. Let's go. Talk about it.
Yeah, I spoke at the NSCA.
NSCA.
Dude, I should have remembered. I'm wearing an NSCA shirt that I got at that event. um,
So yeah, you were a speaker. So
yeah, at the
this is
NSCA PA clinic. And fun fact about that, the guy who ran it, he emailed me afterwards and he goes, "Hey, that clinic was rated by the NSCA at, I forget what they call it, like global level or like elite level or whatever, like their, like a high level is. Like that clinic was high level, and it had never been that before. Now, granted, there were other speakers as well. And I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but like I will say that I think mine was a little better than some of the other people. Visually, it looked fantastic because the slides were not made by me; they were made by my wife, who is the best at PowerPoint, and she
Go.
made it look phenomenal.
There you go.
And
You need an
then,
Excel spreadsheet. I'll let you boy.
yeah, yeah, exactly. But yeah, dude, that was fantastic. I got to go and give a talk about literally this, about strength conditioning for combat sports, and I had people come up to me and be like, "Hey, I came here to see you," and I
That's
was like,
crazy.
"Bro, that's awesome." And I think the number one thing that I mean, I think all the stuff that I talked about was really good, but I'd say the number one thing that I wanted to, you know, get out to as many people as possible who could potentially be involved in this world, because also a lot of those guys are strength and conditioning coaches only. They've never done a combat sport in their life, and now, as the sport grows, they're going to have, whether pros or amateurs or whatever, seeking them out for strength and conditioning advice. And you know what a lot of strength and conditioning coaches get stuck with? Nutrition stuff, even though they're not nutritionists, and weight cutting. And if you
Mm-hmm.
don't know about weight cutting, you can do some real
You ain't
damage.
gonna do it right.
And so that was the number one thing that I really wanted to teach there. It was like how we cut weight and how to like do it properly. I am also not a nutritionist. I'm also probably not the best at weight cutting, but I'm better than most.
Yes.
And I can teach some safety things, like some real high level safety things that I think could potentially have a positive impact. So like I was really happy to get that out. But overall, it was just fantastic, dude. I got to give this lecture to like, I don't know what it was, 100 plus people. And yeah, again, that's just one of those things where like you feel like it's affirming that like what I'm doing is legitimate. Like, yeah, this book has sold pretty well. That's cool. But like also some really bad dumb books have sold really well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, am I legit? But then I'm speaking there and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Like they have a somewhat of a vetting process, and again, like people give me like good feedback afterwards. So I was like, oh, like I'm good at this. This is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. So it seems like, like in your adult life, like, so I'm going to consider your adult life basically like as you leave college,
Right.
right? Because like that's what was supposed to prepare you for it. Seems like you've got like pretty far for someone in your field pretty fast. I don't
Yeah.
think there's many 33-year-old coaches with 11 years professional coaching experience.
Yeah, and full time too.
Yeah,
I think
you know
that's
what I mean?
really important because you asked me some questions earlier. I forget what it was about, maybe teaching, whatever. And I said I'd spent a lot of time thinking about that, right? Like that to me is very important. Is that like because I'm not working a day job, I have time to think about stuff. And sometimes when I'm just like doing something unrelated, I'm mowing the lawn, I'm just like sitting there, I'm cleaning my kitchen, I'm cooking, whatever, like I'm just thinking things over in my head. And I'm like, okay, I could teach this like this, or maybe I could teach it like this. And just like having the time and the freedom to let my mind wander has allowed me to just like discover things and pick out little things that, whether they work or not, wouldn't have been thought of otherwise. And then also just like doing this full time, I get more reps, whether you want to view that as like literally I have more time to like get reps coaching people, or you can also look at it as like I have access to way more people. I've taught more people striking than probably most striking coaches ever already at 33. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so like I've learned like, oh, hey, I used to teach this way and people didn't really get it, but now I've taught it this way and I have so much data to back that up. You know what I mean? Like I've taught the same lesson hundreds and hundreds of times to hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of people. And so like that has been a huge help for me, and I think that like that's really helped propel me. So big thanks to you for bringing me on as your coach when I was just like a punk kid, and big thanks to Warren for bringing me on and like sending me to Thailand and to the coaches clinics and taking me on that training trip and giving me the freedom to then do all those things. You know what I mean? And so like um, yeah, I would say that I've gotten pretty far in as a coach in a decade, and for how young I am and everything, and that's all thanks to the people around me, everyone who's believed in me,
Yep. Well, it takes more than that.
and the fighters too. Thank you guys for like trusting me to be your coach. That's I don't take that lightly.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's a big deal. And it takes someone who, is willing to do those things and live the life like that we lived. And that's
Yeah,
our lead.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah. It
gotta be,
does.
and you gotta be at a certain, like, the timing plays into it,
Hmm.
right? You know what I mean? Like, you probably wouldn't be able to do it, like,
I wouldn't be able to do it this way if MMA was, dude.
Oh
Think
yeah,
about
the
20
sport
years in the
itself.
future.
The
You know what I
sport
mean?
itself.
Like,
Oh, I think about that all the
can
time.
you
Like,
imagine leaving college and then going and being like a high level like NFL coach?
yeah, no shot.
No shot.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's not gonna happen. And like
Yeah.
not, I didn't like obviously like leave college and go and like be the top coach at like ATT or something.
Right.
But I left college and was coaching professionally, full
Yeah.
time, two professionals. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like right away. And then that also happened to correspond with the sport growing. So
Right.
not only did I get to go to like a relatively high level gym, again, Stout at the time was not ATT. We're not ATT yet, but like, it's relatively high level, but also the sport is pulling that level up. You know what I
Yes.
mean? The fact that the UFC is growing, the fact that more people are doing MMA and jiu-jitsu and striking, like that's pulling that up as well. So like a lot of it's timing and luck that I got involved in it when I did.
Yeah.
I do think I'm good, but also like I don't want to discount the fact that I got lucky getting in when I got in.
Right. Yeah. I think about that often for myself, like right place, right time, right place, but also timing in your life, right?
Oh
Like
yeah.
to do the things it took to jump into this, you wouldn't have been able to do that like right now.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
Like a mortgage.
Yeah. Yeah.
Responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Like it was the one of the benefits too, getting in early
Right.
as a kid. It's like, dude, you're just a kid. You don't need anything.
Yeah, I needed nothing. I had a crappy apartment that I
Yeah.
shared with Pogal,
Yeah.
and I had no responsibilities, no cares in the world. All I cared about was training fighters and learning martial arts, and yeah, dude, just a lot. I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky. I've lived
We
an
all
awesome
are.
life.
We're all very lucky to have you. Stout's very lucky to have you. All the students and fighters very lucky to have you. I was lucky to have you as a coach. Now I'm lucky to have you as like my co-coach. Now that I decided that I am now the coach.
Which I enjoyed your career, but I couldn't wait till this.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Hey, I think that pretty much wraps up this episode. I gotta say, we've now recorded, with ones, in the bank for the rainy days. We've now recorded over 40 episodes.
Yeah.
I think might be like the 43rd or 44th one recorded.
Plus, there's some ones that will never see the light of day because they
Yeah.
were testers.
Yeah, some of those testers and stuff. This definitely, as a co-host, this has been my favorite episode, without a doubt.
Wait, really?
Yeah,
Oh, dude, that's sick. Halfway
not
through,
even-
I was like, oh,
it's
dude, I wonder
not
if this is a
even-
good pod.
It's not even close.
Oh, dude,
I
that's
can't even think of what second is. This is so far ahead.
oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, we've had some fun times, but
Yeah.
I enjoyed my time on this one more than I have on any of the other ones.
Oh, sick. Well, I hope the other people enjoy it. If you guys did, let us know, and we'll do the same thing for Mike. And if you guys really like it, we could maybe go further back, talk more like early history of you wrestling or me doing traditional martial arts, and we can
leave
dive
us
into those
comments
things.
underneath on what you want to hear. If you want us to go deeper into any like one aspect, we would love to do that. Like we could go deeper into this book. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
we could do a whole pod just about that.
On the book, and then you can buy the book.
Yeah, buy
for
my book.
Reference. For reference after listening to that.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, best episode of Listen to Your Coaches so far. Hopefully we will, jump this and have really great episodes all the time. But yep, this was Listen to Your Coaches, and that is your coach, Will Morrill.